Hello guys, and welcome to the Short Tooth Channel's review of Audrey Hepburn's Breakfast at Tiffany's. Yes, it may be a chick flick, but you know, I get down like that. I watch Sex and the City and all of that, so it doesn't matter. So let's get on and review this film, shall we? Which I watched last night for the very first time. Yeah, let's have a review, shall we? Alright, sorry about that, the clip just then, my head was chopped off. Anyway, just one quick note, something that I've got to say. Just then, I was next to a canvas. I spent about 5 minutes getting it out of storage and it was all dusty and shit. I've caused some dust in the flat, I'm going to have to hoover up in a minute. But I've got a massive fear of spiders, and only after I finished recording that last clip, when I went to move the canvas, did I realise that there was a spider hanging off the back of it, quite a big one. But it's okay now, it's dealt with. It's gone, just like that. So anyway, let's move on to this. Breakfast at Tiffany's. Now, my girlfriend bought this, and I've got to say, it's one of those films, you know it's a classic, you know you should be seeing it, I should be seeing it, because I've got that 1001 films to see before you die list, and it's on there. But it's one of those films that kind of gets construed as a chick flick, and because it's so dated, well not dated, but because it's like 60 years old now or something like that, it's one of those films that you sort of, you stay away from. Not that I'm biased against old films, I like old films, but because this one seems so female orientated, and because you see the image of, well, you see that mass marketed so many places all over the place. I thought it was going to be a shallow thing about some rich bitch who just gets wined and dined all over the place and oh woe is me with her life. Anyway, my girlfriend bought it, which was good because otherwise I probably would never have bought it, or I would have, but not for a long time. And we watched it last night. So here is the review. Many of you have probably seen it. First things first to say, when this film started, I was surprised because I thought it was going to be black and white. It was made in 1951 or 61? 51, I think. And Audrey Hepburn plays Holly, a girl called Holly, or she has many names. You've got George Peppard, who played Hannibal in the A-Team, for those of you who are fans. And it also stars Mickey Rooney. I'll come to Mickey Rooney in a minute, because I've got some things to say about him, that's for sure. So yeah, I was surprised when it was in colour. And it was in crystal clear colour. The Blu-ray is fantastic for this film. That's the first thing that's got to be said. The images pop and are so sharp. And for films like this, which are so old, when they get the old HD treatment and it looks this good, it's always very, very satisfying. So it's fantastic to see. It took me a while to get into the story, I must confess. Basically, it was a bit confusing at first. The concept is Audrey Hepburn plays this, well, when you first meet her, she seems to be this sort of socialite. She lives in this building, this tenant building. She's a bit of a kooky character. She's got all odd bits around the flat. She's got a cat, a ginger cat. That's a bit of a character unto itself. Some good acting by the cat in this film, as we said. Anyway, George Peppard moves into her building, inevitably bumps into her, meets her, and the two strike up something of a friendship. Now, they're both basically, I'm not spoiling anything with this film. It's 60 years. If you haven't seen it and you don't want it spoiled, I'm not going to tell you the ending, but I'm just going to tell you something that's a plot point in it. It transpires, basically, that she's a prostitute and he is a prostitute. Now, because of the time, they couldn't outright say that. There was something called the Hays Code, which was in place at that time, which meant that references to sexual things, or, yeah, mainly sexual things, to be honest with you, had to be skirted around and dished around. There's also a character in this, her brother Fred, who is a gay man, but they can't say that in the film. So they make out he's got troubles, or he's troubled, as an allusion to his homosexuality. Anyway, these guys are prostitutes. He's sleeping with women for money, she's sleeping with men for money. However, the two sort of come together, and while they're both doing this and they have that in common, she's doing it because, well, she's a wild one, basically, and that's what this whole film is about. She's quite wild. She doesn't want to belong to anyone. She doesn't want to be owned by anyone. She doesn't want to be boxed in by anyone or anything. She wants to move with the time. She wants to move with the wind. She wants to go where she wants to go, and what she wants is money in order to do those things. But what she realises and says in the film is that for all the money that she's getting, moonlighting around, or getting $50 to go to the powder room, as it's called, $50 to go to the powder room, basically her prostituting herself, all that money that she's getting, it hasn't got her any closer to fulfilling any of her dreams, or getting away to some of the beautiful places she wants to go, or owning some of the beautiful things that she wants to own. This dress that she's wearing in it, she looks like she's wearing loads of different outfits throughout the film, but she's always wearing a variation of this dress. She wears this dress and accessorises it with something else. There's my little bit of Sex and the City talk coming out there. No, but that's just a piece of trivia about it, right? So anyway, He, on the other hand, he's trying to get money because he wants to. He's a struggling writer. He writes books. He's wrote a book called 9 Lives, and he's trying to write another book, but he hasn't even got ribbon for his typewriter. And the money that he gets from sleeping around, well, you say sleeping around, he's actually only sleeping with one woman in this film that's paying him, is sort of fulfilling his lifestyle. Anyway, as the story goes, we realise that he has feelings towards Audrey Hepburn. I mean, who wouldn't when she looked the way she did in the film? She was gorgeous, she was beautiful. There's no doubt about it. That's why her image has lived on for so long. Anyway, he gets feelings for her, and he starts to realise that maybe he needs to stop doing what he's doing in life. He needs to, you know, commit to someone. And she, on the other hand, like I said, she's a wild one. She doesn't want to be tamed. And she actually says the cat that she owns is called Cat. She doesn't give it a name, because if she gives it a name, it's like domesticating it. It's like making it home, part of the furniture. It's like making it real and there and fixed in its life. And the cats can go where they want and roam where they want, and that's how she sees herself. And the story follows the two of them as they sort of explore New York together and explore the lives that they're living, really. And I've got to say, it runs 2 hours long, and there's moments where I was confused, I won't lie, because I thought, I'm not entirely sure what the story is here, but it all becomes clear at the end, and I can't really talk about the end. I think this is one of those films where the ending and the whole story, everything you've been watching, really reveals itself in the final, 10 minutes or so. That's where the truth of the story comes out. Up until that point, you're watching a lot of scenes and learning a lot about the characters, but it's only in the last 10 minutes that I've found anyway that the real story came out and the real meaning behind everything you've seen before came out. That's not a criticism, it's just that it was refreshing to see, actually, because nowadays it's forced for their plot point after plot point. This is happening, so this happens, so this happens, so this happens, whereas in this, you're following people's lives, you're observing these things. Now, anyway, I won't talk about the story too much beyond that. Just a couple of little nice bits that I want to make reference to. For anyone who's seen this, or if you haven't seen it and you're thinking of seeing it, there's a little cameo by a guy called Sally Tomatoes, which is the mob boss that she gets paid to visit in prison. That man is the voice of Fred Flintstone. Go and rewatch this film and rewatch that scene, and then go and watch Fred Flintstone, and you'll see it's the same voice. Yes, it is. The other thing to mention is the cat in this film is brilliant. Well, they used 9 cats to play the cat in this film, but the cat was so much a character of the film. Without it, it would lose something quite significantly. And I think a few people will be in tears towards the end, and not because the cat dies. I'm not saying that. It's not as simple. It's not as obvious and on the nose as that. I'm just talking about. Forget this. Forget that. The cat might make you cry, basically. And then the other big point I want to come to, right? And there's no way that I could review this film without talking about it, because for me, this was the thing that stood out the most from the film, right? Mickey Rooney plays, and people who've seen the film will know what I'm about to say. Sorry guys, it looks like the battery just died in the middle of that. Sorry, quick edit. Yeah, so most of you will know what I'm talking about for those who have seen it. Mickey Rooney plays the landlord of Audrey Hepburn's building. He's the comedy relief, supposedly, of the film. He plays Mr. What's his name? Mr. Yuniyoshi, right? Mr. Yuniyoshi, so you can guess. He's playing an Asian American. Mickey Rooney is playing an Asian American. Mickey Rooney, the white guy, right? He is done up as the most racist, stereotypical, it's a terrible, terrible caricature of Asian Americans, right? He's got the big round glasses. He's got makeup on to give him what was called yellow face back in the day, where they mocked white people up to look like Asian Americans or Orientals. Whether he's meant to be Chinese, Japanese, Korean, it doesn't matter. They don't even care who it's meant to be. They just want it to be an Asian stereotype. And man, is it uncomfortable to watch. There are several scenes throughout the movie where he appears, and they are uncomfortable to watch. The first time I saw him on screen, I thought, what exactly is going on here? Because that's not that. At first, I didn't realise it was Mickey Rooney, but I knew that it was not an Asian American. I knew that it was a white person mocked up, and man, is it bad. It is racist and it is offensive. And at the end of the film, it was the one thing that really stuck in my mouth that made me think, yeah, that's really tarnished that whole film. For those of you who've got the Blu-ray, and for those of you who are going to pick it up, there is an extra on the disc called Mr. Yuniyoshi, An Asian Perspective. It's a brilliant, brilliant extra. I recommend you watch it. It's about 15 minutes long, and it's got interviews with sort of Asian American experts in the field of broadcasting or representatives from the community that are talking about how dissatisfied they were with the personification of them in this film and other films that had come before it, where they either play the villains or the comedy relief. And there's a brilliant section where they go on to say the first time that they really became proud of the way they were represented on film and TV was with George Takei when he appeared in Star Trek, and when he took over that mantle, because he was an important figure who wasn't a stereotype, who wasn't a caricature. And it's a really great extra, and it's brilliant that Paramount included it on the disc for this film, because essentially they're including an extra which criticises something in the film quite heavily. And it's good to know that this was something done many, many years ago. You would like to think, and I did think, you know, you wouldn't get that these days, but fucking hell, Adam Sandler, any Adam Sandler film that has got, what's his name in, Rob Schneider, that arsehole, man, he is so fucking unfunny anyway, and to see him in films still doing caricatures like this, that was 60 years ago, and this is modern day and he's still doing it. I mean, forget about it, I hate it. I hate that stuff, and it was the one thing that really stuck in my craw about this, but it didn't tarnish the film overall, it just left a sour taste in my mouth. Now finally, I just want to say, because I know that I don't want to go on too long with this, that this was written by Truman Capote. Many of you will know who Truman Capote was. He wrote in Cold Blood. He was a writer back in, I don't know, like the 40s or something like that. Philip Seymour Hoffman played him in the film Capote. He won an Oscar for it. And Truman Capote was actually a gay man himself, and he wrote the character of Fred being gay, and also the character of Paul, which is George Peppard's character in this, was gay in the book, or so I've heard. I haven't read the book, so I've heard. And he wasn't entirely happy, Truman Capote wasn't entirely happy that they made him out to be heterosexual in this film and gave him Audrey Hepburn as a love interest, because apparently in the book that doesn't happen. He also, Truman Capote, wasn't happy with the casting of Audrey Hepburn. He wanted Marilyn Monroe because he felt the character of Holly should have been more of a sort of rugged, rough and ready farm girl, someone you could believe grew up and worked on a farm, could carry her own against other men, and supposedly Audrey Hepburn was very uncomfortable every time Truman Capote was on set watching her, because she knew that he didn't approve of her casting. But got to say, this was fantastic. This was great. Audrey Hepburn did an amazing job. George Peppard did an amazing job. It was really good, really fantastic. This is not the kind of film that I'm going to be watching regularly, and I will probably watch it again, but in a few years. This is something you've got to see if you haven't seen it, though. It's a film that can't be passed up on. One recommendation I'll give for you, if you did enjoy this, which I did, there is a film called The Misfits, which, funnily enough, stars Marilyn Monroe. It's got Clark Gable in it, Montgomery Clift, and your man, I've forgotten his name, the guy, he just died recently, actually, from Godfather 3, Don Altobello, all when they're much younger. And it's a similar sort of storyline about taming wildness and wanting to be free, but it has a very different ending and a very different message overall, the way it goes about it. And I really recommend that. I love that film. The Misfits, it's called. Anyway, Breakfast at Tiffany's, a success. Out of 10, I'm not doing out of 10s. I'm not doing that stuff. I'm not fucking Roger Ebert, because he's dead. And this film was good. So, if you're in two minds about it, go and check it out and get it. Own it in your collection. This was a fantastic DVD. The quality was breathtaking. I really, really liked it, really enjoyed it. It's something that you could even get the best out of your speakers on this, because a lot of the times with films back then, the audio quality isn't so great, but on the surround sound it was crystal, absolutely crystal clear, didn't miss a drop or drop a word of dialogue. One last thing I must say is, if the Hays Code was like eliminating homosexuality, wasn't letting that being talked about, wasn't letting prostitution being talked about explicitly, how the hell did they get away with this racist character? That's what I want to know. That's how backwards things were. But that's Hollywood for you, isn't it? And that's the studio system. But anyway, Paramount, fair play to you for putting that feature in to admit that it was out of line. Anyway, guys, Breakfast at Tiffany review done. Boom.